um, food service that, in nursing homes or whatever the case is,
Hmm.
or hospital workers too, nurses, doctors, those type. So it is actually impacting the healthcare community quite a bit, and it's unfortunate just because the people that aren't in healthcare rely on us to get
Yeah.
better, and if we can't, if we're kind of getting sick and and not really being able to help other people, what is the end? What's the result at that point, or what's going to happen then when there's not enough people to take care of all the sick people?
Who saves the heroes? That's the thing.
Yeah.
And that's when I hear a lot of these arguments to open things up and, this anxiousness to get out. And I just want people to be more aware of the impact that has on
Yeah.
our whole first responder line of defense. And if you
Right.
get overwhelmed, it means then far less people to help and far more people dying. And I wonder if they take that into consideration when they're calculating projected deaths.
Yeah, I'm not sure in
Yeah.
terms of what they're using to project that. I will say, the numbers that they're giving for projected deaths, the mortality of this, although if we just cross the 10,000 mark, in New York, whatever the case is for deaths, it's unfortunately going to continue.
Yeah.
That's the thing. The curve, yes, the curve is we may be on the other side of the bell curve at this point, where we're not seeing as many hospital admissions, but there's still a tremendous amount.
Yeah.
Where I have some data just from New Jersey, because we just had a meeting on this yesterday, and there's still, we're seeing between 4,000 and 4,500 cases per day.
Holy.
So it's like in the state, like it's a lot. It's not like, okay, we're on the other side of the curve and we've seen 200. No, we're still seeing thousands of cases per day. It's bizarre, and it's unfortunate. The good part is a majority of them are not requiring hospitalization, not requiring intubation and those sorts of things, but there is still a tremendous amount of people that are testing positive every day. The other thing too is just from a medical standpoint, you test positive today, most of the people are getting sick. It's not day one that they're going to the hospital. It's basically between day 5 and day 10. People think they're getting better after about a week, and then all of a sudden day 9, day 10 comes along, and they've actually gotten significantly worse and gotten to the hospital. And at that point, you need oxygen, need ventilation, those type of things. So it's a very rough ride. It's for most people, it's not just like, hey, I've been sick for 3 or 4 days. It's even the mild symptoms. They're sick for days. Like week, 2 weeks, and then for anyone over the age of 55 with any kind of medical problems, whether it be diabetes, smokers with COPD, whatever the case is, asthma, those people get so much sicker, and their illnesses are more like 3 weeks, 4 weeks that it's taking for them to get better.
Would you say someone with heart disease is especially prone?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the highest risk factors: diabetes, heart disease, and any type of lung issue, whether it be asthma, COPD, lung cancer. Those type of things are really high risk. It's, to be honest, if you have any kind of lung pathology, you're going to do poorly in terms of surviving this if you get sick.
Jeez.
I'll give you a quick anecdote. I
Yeah.
took care of this gentleman last time I worked, and he was 70 years old. He actually is a lung cancer survivor.
Wow.
His lung cancer is in remission. He used immunotherapy, where they use your own antibodies, basically tag it with chemotherapy, so your body kind of treats your own cancer, which is amazing. He's actually better right now in terms of, like, his cancer is not growing. Everything looks good. but he's got about 30, at this point, he had about 30% compromise of his lungs. So his lungs are functioning about 70% of normal. In addition, because of all of his other issues, he's got some kidney problems. He typically requires IV hydration. So he was going to his private doctor who was giving him hydration as an outpatient. However, because of this, all those outpatient clinics have basically closed. So his normal therapies and everything have basically been shut down. So unfortunately, over 2 or 3 weeks after all these things closed down, he basically has to go to the hospital and see me. When I'm seeing him, his kidney, we did an X-ray, and he didn't have COVID. He was negative, but he has a pneumonia, right middle lobe pneumonia. And then in addition, his kidneys, because he hasn't been able to take in as much as he normally does and get his fluid, his kidney function was poor. So on a normal day, a non-COVID day, there was a 99.9% chance this guy would have been admitted to the hospital. I had to have a discussion with this guy saying, listen, you really should be admitted. However, if I admit you to the hospital, there's a high chance you're going to get sick because everybody here has COVID. And if you get sick in the hospital with COVID, you're going to die. So even though you have two things that should admit you to the hospital, pneumonia and kidney compromise, I can't, in good faith, tell you to come to the hospital so we could treat you, because if you get sick here, you're 100% going to die. So I sent this guy home, and basically set him up to come back to get IV hydration and things like that, and work things out with his primary doctor, put him on antibiotics. But I mean, those are the choices. Like, people that normally should be admitted, bread and butter admissions to the hospital, cannot be, because they're going to get sick in the hospital. And if you get sick with COVID and you've got any kind of history like that, you're not going to make it.
Now, I heard something that, do you think that it was possible that they might have been intubating people too early, potentially, because of the symptoms were so way off? It's a bit out of left field. I don't know. I just heard this somewhere, and I was just curious, if that's something you're hearing as well.
It's so intubation. There's criteria that we kind of use before we intubate somebody. It's not really just based on numbers. I mean, part of it is based on numbers. You do what's called a blood gas, and you look at the oxygen and the carbon dioxide and how much people are retaining and whatnot. So we do use that as a guideline, but we also use their mental status and some other kind of factors, like if they're in respiratory distress, meaning if somebody's really struggling to breathe and they're trying to breathe 40 times a minute, and they're just doing these deep, shallow breaths. I mean, it's only a matter of time before they get tired, and their oxygen level is going to go lower and lower. The issue is this: if your oxygen level drops for a prolonged period of time, you really start kind of killing off cells in your body, because your body, all those cells require oxygen to function. The primary cells requiring oxygen are really brain cells, like in a function, to function normally, your brain needs the right nutrients and you need the right amount of oxygenation, So if you're not getting enough oxygen, you're going to start killing brain cells. You're going to actually start having some, permanent mental, dysfunction.
Wow.
So intubation is really to kind of help keep oxygen levels high enough so that the sensitive organs in your body can still get what they need, the resources they need, and be able to function the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thanks for explaining that.
I don't think that they really were intubating too early. The only thing I really would say is people are not doing well that get intubated, but it's not because of the intubation. It's just because of how sick they are.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, there are some reports that they're basically 60 to 80% mortality once you get intubated.
Holy crap!
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty bad. Just one other note: I don't mean to kind of sour your show and talk about how.
No, this is important. This is what we need to hear.
How bad things are, but in New York and New Jersey, because they're the highest incidents, if you're older, basically probably above the age of 70, and you've got medical problems and you're kind of already declining, so to speak, your health prior to COVID infection, if you get COVID, they're actually not even really looking to resuscitate you anymore.
Wow.
Because people aren't doing well. They're not surviving. So, if they intubate you, if they put you on medications to bring your blood pressure up, whatever the case is, those people, no matter what you do, they end up, unfortunately, dying. So now in these two states, they're really not doing much. If you come in, like for example, if EMS comes, if an EMS call comes to your house and because a family member is in cardiac arrest or whatever the case is, that's COVID positive, they're really probably going to push on your family member's chest a couple times and say, sorry, unfortunately, we couldn't do anything. The risk of infecting healthcare workers is basically higher, or unfortunately weighs more at this point than the success of being able to resuscitate these people. Because again, the resuscitation efforts in people that are compromised, they're not living. There's unfortunately no other way to say it. But at this point, older folks that aren't doing well, it's not like the doctors don't want to do anything, but no matter what we do, these people aren't living. And this is the only time in my life that I've ever seen anything like this, that we have no clue how to basically keep people alive,
How are you dealing with this? How are both you and your wife dealing with this?
I'd say it's really probably one of the tensest times that we faced. Basically, she ends up working more shifts than I do, so she's in a lot higher stress. I would say day in and day out than I am, and it's tough because to be honest, it's a process going in and out of all the rooms, seeing people. The other thing too is, we have two little kids, and it's like, all right, we both shower when we're at the hospital. We change our clothes, so we don't even put our clothes in a garbage bag and basically, do our wash separate, with hot water to kind of make sure we kind of get everything done. Mm-hmm. But we try to keep everything out of the house as much as possible. And it's stressful. Like you go to work and you don't know what's going to happen to you if you get sick. So it's, to be honest, I would say both my wife and I are at the point where we kind of wish we could be infected and be past it and know that that we were okay and okay, we can get back to work.
Yeah.
But unfortunately or fortunately, both of us aren't sick at this point because we don't know. I could get sick, and to be honest, I could be on a ventilator in a week. Yeah. I consider myself pretty healthy, but there again, getting back to that no rhyme or reason. I don't know that I'm going to be okay or that she's going to be okay if we get sick. So it's so stressful just thinking about that, making sure every patient you see, you've got to I wear 2 pairs of gloves. I've got goggles, I've got a mask, I've got a face shield over that, and then I've got, my kind of raincoat, so to speak, guard over my clothes and, doing all those things to kind of protect yourself, and still people are getting sick. It's a challenge,
Whew.
And as far as supplies go too, here's the number. The hospital that I use, the hospital I work at, we're running out of gowns. So we're trying to figure out what we're going to do for gowns. And you think, all right, well, how many gowns are you actually going through a day? The hospital that I work at is using about 2,000 gallons per day.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
wow.
So basically we're trying to figure out ways to kind of cut that number down. And then again, this is the issue, right? So in the emergency department, if I wear a gown with one patient and they're positive, and then I go into the next room and I assume my patient is negative and I don't change my gown, okay, well then I've got all the stuff from the previous patient I saw, and now I'm exposing that second patient. So at this point, there's no rhyme or reason. We're kind of thinking about clustering people. All right, so anyone that is positive for sure goes in here, and this doctor will take care of them, and they can gown up and wear the gown and see maybe 2 or 3 people at a time. that are already positive, so I don't have to worry about spreading to, another new person. But just trying to figure out ways to cut down on our protective gear, because there is a shortage.